thank you, Karen, in what is probably going to be my last official act as chair of the committee. I'm going to call the meeting to order. A couple of small bits of business before we get into the agenda. I tested positive for COVID yesterday, as did Deborah. So we are in day 2 of isolation. And the immediate—
Can't catch it over Zoom, can you?
You know, who knows?
Put your mask on, Fred. It makes me feel safer.
What if I just talk into my phone? Don't come to my office right now and you'll be okay. Kathy,
How you feeling?
remarkably okay, all things considered. My wife Deborah is doing not as quite as well. She's sleeping a lot. And the medicine that they give you in some people makes everything taste bitter. I'm not having that experience, but apparently she is. So, you know, every day is an adventure right now. The immediate consequence, though, to the Finance Committee, I'm not saying this to like elicit sympathy particularly, is that I will not be at town meeting on Saturday because that's the last day of isolation for me. So unless there is a rain delay, Kathy will assume the position, as it were, and she'll rep for the Finance Committee on Saturday. Again, assuming that there is a meeting. I understand there's a chance of rain.
And assuming that my recent exposure doesn't have me come down with COVID before then. So
right, because we met on my deck yesterday, so it was outdoors, and we weren't making,
not bad, but I'm quarantining and testing, so I plan on being healthy on Saturday.
So if it's either of us, it'll probably be Jen Rhodes. She's not here, so surprise, 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 as I used to say. Anyway, I'll miss y'all. I'll dial in, but reality is you won't see me on Saturday unless I pull up in my car from a distance and wave. The other bit of new news is that Linda Pellegrino, the long-serving and diligent and extremely competent subject. What? I'm sorry, I missed that. Anyway, Linda is going to be stepping down as a member of the Finance Committee after town meeting. After 10 years, is it?
Yes.
11, 15,
10.
10. I think that's a good tenure, as it were. So
Thank you.
Well
We
done.
left you to Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah, doing Dunkin' 5:30 to 9:30 in the morning. These meetings are tough.
We will
Ira.
find you. We will find you. Anyway, that leaves an opening. I don't know if Jeff Behrens will like to step in from being an alternate, but we have an opening as an alternate, and now temporarily at least a full-time opening. So if you know anybody who is competent, qualified, and interested, not in that order, please let us know, or let Danny Silverman know, because all roads go through the moderator. Well, that's it with that business. So the first item on the agenda is the minutes from our May 18th meeting, mostly votes that we made on various articles. It's not a particularly long minutes.
Move to accept.
Thank you very much.
Second.
I guess I could do a roll call just to hear everybody's voice. Jeff?
Aye.
Aye for me. Linda?
Aye.
For one of the last times. Kathy?
Aye.
Ira?
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
Oh,
Aye.
and Bob.
I wasn't there. I'll abstain.
Fair enough. So we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 701, just to record that business.
Okay, this is a minor thing. I
Yes.
just noticed my first name is spelled with a PH, not a V.
That's true. That is true.
Sorry.
That's all right.
I can amend it. You want me to? I'll amend it. I apologize, Stephen.
That's all right.
As long as we don't have to vote again on it.
No,
Or
you
do-
can vote to accept with the change of his first name.
It's
Sorry.
true. Or do we have to vote that Stephen's name is spelled with a PH?
We're voting on the minutes not being correct is what we're.
That was a
voting on.
joke. It was a joke. It was, I'm
Let's
fever.
move on, okay?
I'm hallucinatory here. Just cut me some slack.
Must be the
um,
COVID.
Yeah, it must be the COVID as opposed to the usual stuff, right?
You know what
Um,
you should do? Lick your screen and see if you can taste it.
That's such a bitter remark. Let's move on.
and that would, considering this is a public meeting, that would almost be fun. But I'm not gonna do it. So I'm not
We're
sure.
on,
Statement.
I'm willing to open up the next bit of business to the town administrator and Nick for the town finance and ATM status kind of review. I'm not sure what, aside from the articles we still have to vote on and the review of the capital budget, particularly what we have, what you may want to say ahead of town meeting, but the floor is yours. Nick, do you want to take the lead, or Charlie?
Well, I'll take the lead and just say that, Charlie has, been demoted and he's no longer the town administrator. But
Fair enough. Good point. Sorry, Rich. I'm sorry.
Exactly. No, but Charlie is one that's really carrying this ball to town meeting. And I can't tell you how thankful I am for that. The hard work that him and his team have put into this budget, into correcting things. We had decided a little bit ago that, we want Charlie to carry this all the way to town meeting. So, so in terms of the town administrator role, I really don't have much to say on this matter. I'll let Charlie start. And if there's anything else that I want to fill in, I will. I will say, though, that in my first week here, it's been very enlightening. I have, not only been to several meetings, but I have also met with all the senior staff here. And one thing that I can say is the staff is fantastic. They're terrible, terrific, but they're reassuring. It reassures me that, we have a good foundation to work from and build from. So all this hard work that's been going on for the last 2 years of trying to untangle the past, and really what we're trying to do on Saturday is set the structure moving forward. We got a great team in place to move things forward. I think one of the things, my takeaways from meeting with the staff is they're looking for leadership, help to carry things through, to keep agendas on task and be able to move things forward. So I'm very excited about that. With that said, I did meet with the treasurer, and I have a pending meeting to meet with the town accountant, but at some point I do want to make sure that we have a liaison to this board. So we always, have someone that attends these meetings. And again, excuse my ignorance of not understanding how the general setup for your meetings are, even on the off years, when it's not so busy, or the off months. But, I want you guys to be able to have a dedicated person that you can go to staff to get information that you need for your agendas. And so at the time being, I've asked Cameron Scott, moving forward, the town treasurer, if you'd be a liaison to your group. And I think in subsequent meetings, you'll probably see Cameron logged in here and be able to help as we start to, close out fiscal year 22, get into fiscal year 23, make sure that the financials and the reportings are going good. And, if I decide that it's probably best to have Nick as the liaison, I may change that at some point. But I just wanted to let you know that those are some of the things that we're thinking as we transition the new town administration.
So let me say this in reply. It's sort of a chicken and egg kind of thing. If you go back historically, the town administrator would be our so-called liaison, but it wasn't official. It was historically whatever, but it wasn't consistent either. So it wasn't like we could absolutely count on the town administrator showing up at every meeting. There was a certain amount of begging involved back in the past. We never had the town accountant, and it would have been more useful, frankly, to have the town accountant, given that we're a finance committee. Last year, early 2021, Heather Michaud started coming to our meetings on a regular basis. Right. And that was hugely helpful for as long as Heather lasted. which unfortunately wasn't long enough. But we were getting a much better idea of what the financial status of the town was. There are times when it's useful to have the town administrator present for larger administrative issues, the strategic stuff, what's going on with the town. But in terms of nuts and bolts finance, the accountant and the treasurer make a whole lot more sense to the committee. I believe, and I don't want to speak for Kathy here, but we talked about wanting to meet with you, or maybe Kathy, because I'm transitioning out, but wanting to meet with you just to set up this sort of thing, just to establish what our liaison roles will be and how we can expect them to work. So thank you for that.
Well, Fred, I appreciate that insight. With that first week, trying to meet the staff, trying to understand their roles and position, that opened up a lot for me. But my next target goal is actually to start working with these committees a little more and see what their roles are and see how we can help and make sure that we have good staff representation for these these different committees and such. So it seems like we're on the same page, and depending on the results of tonight, it looks like you guys will be doing a little bit of changing up on who's going to be the chairman of your group, and whoever's in that role, we're happy to work with them moving forward into the future, and set up some good communication between administration as well as the finance committee.
That's great. I know we've made a lot of noise in the last year and a half about how we're trying to change the role of the finance committee for what it was historically when things were more normal. And I'll put it in those terms because it used to be that particularly the operating budget was really a measurement of, are you within or above Prop 2.5? And there wasn't a lot of questioning beyond that about the viability of the budgets. That changed clearly about 2 years ago. And then about 18 months ago, the committee started to work in 3 areas, one with the administration, one with the department heads, and with the select board, to be more inclusive and included in getting information and being able to provide insight or help if necessary. That's an ongoing process. It's not finished, but I think we've made some progress. And to the credit of the departments and the administration, we've been accepted in that role to some degree anyway. So this would just be a continuation, I hope, of what's already started. And our particular goal is to be informed kind of in real time. When things are going off the rails, we don't want to find out about it 6 months later, obviously. And also where there's lack of knowledge or whatever about financial issues, this committee represents a fair breadth of knowledge about various aspects of finance, and we want to be used as a good tool, so to speak, or good tools. That's what we are, good tools. Anyway,
that's great. I appreciate that, and appreciate the time here. And with that, Charlie, if you don't mind, pick up the ball.
Can I just add, I think that 2 cents just before we move on.
Sure.
And, we've just gone through a real acute financial crisis, and we're just hoping we're coming out of it right now. And I guess my advice is the more the merrier in terms of participation with our committee, and that looking forward, I tend to believe that with the rate of inflation and what that's going to mean from a financial perspective, we're probably going to be in a rough situation come next annual town meeting next year. So I would encourage more than less for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. One thing that I have found working with these boards and committees is that we have tremendous talent here in the Outer Cape, tremendous talent and tremendous people that volunteer their time. And that's a resource for us, and we should be viewing it as a resource, and we shouldn't be afraid to bring things forward and get input from different committees and groups. And so I have no issue really being more transparent, meeting with you guys. Nick's already hitting the ground running, starting putting together some reports, some financial reports that will come out on a routine basis. And I think we can just continue to steer this ship in the right direction. And I think all we can hope for at this point is this Saturday, we can convince the town body that the right way to go is to approve these overrides. As much as it might bother them to do so, it's the right decision and it's needed now. And then we can get off on the right foot moving forward. And so, you know, let's be hopeful on this Saturday.
Charlie, I think the ball just got thrown to you, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, thanks. And before I talk, I do need to talk about Article 5, the capital, and then Article number 8 is the police collective bargaining, and Article number 10 is the communications workers. But before that, before I do that, if I could, Fred, I just wanted to say that, you know, this week is sort of like 13 months in Wellfleet for me. And, you know, while I never thought I'd be here this long, I just wanted to, you know, thank the Finance Committee for, you know, what really has been a productive and cooperative and collaborative relationship. And it's, you know, I've enjoyed like 95% of this tour of duty. There's been a few bumps, but that's okay. But I did want to just thank Kathy and Jeff and Mo on the task force for meeting with us and working with us collaboratively. We really, Lisa, Mary, and I really appreciate that. And then, you know, I don't need to tell you, Lisa Sauvé and Mary McIsaac are really the two women that were in the trenches. You know, I got to drive the bus and, you know, have that exposure, but, you know, they really did the lion's share of this work. So credit really goes to those two women. And then I just wanted to thank Fred. You know, Fred and I have developed a really nice relationship, and I think we're kind of friends for life. And I really enjoyed direct and, you know, conversations with Fred, and we solved a lot of problems because we worked well together. So I just wanted to, but of course, thank you to all the Finance Committee people. But you're in good hands with Rich and Nick and Cameron, I really believe, and you're going to build off that team going forward. So anyway, if I could, maybe we'll just talk about the capital budget real fast, which is Article number 5. And the only thing that's going to happen at the annual town meeting, and as I mentioned, I've been here, I was here 13 months. I never thought I'd be here that long, but part of the problem with the capital budget is I didn't get free cash certified, and there's been some criticism about the fact that I didn't get to the finish line on that. And you know what, I accept that. I have some reasons why we didn't, but we don't need to go into that. But what will happen on Saturday on Article number 5 is there'll be an amendment that will eliminate a few items. Those items in Capital 5 that were going to be funded by free cash will be deleted from the warrant, and that's the bandstand 6D, which is the bandstand awning replacement, 6E, which is the water refill station, in 6H, which is Briar Lane culvert replacement engineering. Those items were going to be funded by free cash. I don't have free cash certified, so those are going to have to wait till the fall. Other than that, I'll just, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer it.
I would just ask about 6H, the Briar Lane culvert replacement, and 6D, we had already, as the Finance Committee, expressed our concerns about on numerous occasions. So I suspect there are a few people who are not real sorry to see that one at least get deferred. I don't know much, to be honest, about the water refill station project, but the Briar Lane culvert replacement sounds like something that might have some urgency behind it.
Yes. Yeah. So what we've done, I mean, that is a sort of a critical project that we can't wait until the fall. So I talked to Jay Norton. Jay Merchant's a Brewster guy. I talked to Jay Norton, and we've applied and received approval to use Chapter 90 funds which is state allocation of monies for roads and drainage related issues. So that culvert has failed. It's causing some significant problems to to the abutters. So we won't miss a beat on that because we'll use Chapter 90 monies. And also to give credit to Jay Norton, he has applied for a state grant to fund the construction costs for that project. And we're optimistic, but still waiting final word on the construction phase of that project.
So is there a worst case here that should that not come to be, that the monies will then be transferred back from free cash when free cash becomes available?
Yeah, I think the nice thing right now is we'll use the state Chapter 90 funds to advance the engineering and permitting phase of this. That's going to take a few months. So we really won't lose a beat. And then if we don't get the grant, then we're going to have to look at using some free cash funds in the fall.
Anyone else have any questions about that part of it?
Just a
Okay.
comment. So it looks to me that after you had done all this, you found other creative ways to find money elsewhere. So this would be an example to the DPW to, in the future, when there are these things, to look for other ways to get money for things like, for instance, this one is the Chapter 90 funds because it's roads. We vote on that every year. The bandstand thing, which actually we voted, when we approved the DPW's capital budget, it was approved less the 50,000. So this is a good example. I'm glad you've done it this way. However, moving forward, if we could ask department heads to look at other resources so that we can reduce the budget. That's it.
And if I could, through the chair, on that very note, just to give, a shout out to Jay Norton. I mean, it's like the Keller's Corner project. He did get a grant from NRCS to pay for 75% of that project. So that's really wonderful. Also,
Yeah, that's excellent.
and also at Powers Landing, he did get a grant recently through the same organization to deal with 75% of the cost to, deal with drainage issues there. And most importantly, he did get a grant for Lieutenant Island Road. We're going to be reconstructing that. And NRCS is going to pay for all the drainage improvements in that road, which is close to $1 million. So, you really have a series of department heads that, and Jay's just one example of many who take advantage of these opportunities. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Jay Norton.
I see a hand raised and the face appears to be Judah Hearns, if I'm not mistaken. So Jude, you're welcome to ask, I'm assuming, a question if it's pertinent.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just about the Keller's Corner, I think that is still delayed until the fall, right? Because my concern was that Conscom and the Shellfish Department hadn't really been included in this grant proposal. Is that the case, Charlie? It's put
Well,
off for
I
now?
would say that we were originally going to town meeting to get the money to start the engineering, design, and permitting phase. And when I didn't get free cash certified, that was going to be interrupted. But since we got the grant, we can still progress with the engineering, design, and permitting. So we haven't gone to conservation yet because we don't have anything to give to them. But that's
Right,
what
but the 50,000 that we need to come up with for that, it's tied to the Herring River 200,000 too. So it's just a grant helping another grant. And are we voting on it? I guess is my question, at this meeting, or is it put off till the fall?
Are we voting on what? I'm sorry.
The Keller's Corner 50,000 that we need for the study about the revetment and the.
Well, we don't need to go to town meeting to get money to do the study because we've got grant funding to do that.
Okay, and we've decided to use the grant money to do that expensive study already?
Yes.
Okay, I guess that's why, the Shellfish Department and Conscom had no idea. So maybe the grants could be shared with everybody, so we know what we're signing up for, I suppose.
Yeah, well, good point. And, obviously we just got the grant And until we get the final contract documents, we will move forward on that at that time. So, but I will say that a number of people, Hillary in conservation, are aware that we've received those grants. So
Yeah, but she didn't know anything about it.
I'm all set. I don't have any more answers to your questions. So on that
I
matter,
have a
we're working on
question
it.
here.
Thank
I have a question here for a second.
Wait, Stephen, wait.
Go ahead.
Let this dialogue be over and then we'll go on. Do
Right.
you have,
Go
you have a follow-up, Jude, or has Charlie answered?
No,
your question?
thank you. Thank you.
Stephen?
My question to Jude is, are you on the Conservation Commission?
No, but I asked Hillary about it and I asked, and she said she
So
didn't.
what capacity are you in?
Stephen, that's
tonight?
aside from this question. I'd like Charlie to continue with the presentation.
Okay,
Get on capital budget.
thank you.
I was talking about communication.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate that. And Charlie.
Yeah, no, I'm all set. I think I've answered her questions.
Yeah.
Unless the finance committee has any additional questions.
I have a question just about the capital budget in general. It's broken up into two parts, the raise and appropriate part and the transfer part. It seems to me we've got sort of two trains running that have been, well, themes that have been raised a lot recently. One is to find creative sources of funding, new sources of revenue. In capital projects, very often those are going to be grants, as opposed to fee increases, though not exclusively. The other part, the $653,000 to raise for all of the rest of the capital project, if I'm not mistaken, you've made a statement along the lines of that this is a placeholder, a potential placeholder for the future for the town to consider putting in a capital stabilization fund of some sort. Is that the intention?
Yeah, so there's a series, the articles in this warrant that, in this article that are raise and appropriate. And then there's several other raise and appropriate articles throughout the warrant. Those are if you were to total those all up, those equal the same amount as the that capital exclude, the exclusion for capital special projects and OPEB funding. So I think that's the beauty of what we're trying to do here is we're funding all of these projects, hopefully if the voters approve them under question number 2, but then it creates an allocation going forward where you can use those monies in future years to fund other equipment replacement or repair projects. And if some year the costs are only 400 grand, I would encourage you to appropriate the balance into a capital stabilization fund. And I think it'll put you in a good place. Now, ultimately, while I've sort of failed on the fact that I wanted to get free cash certified by June 11th, ultimately we'll get free cash certified. And I think then you can look at that free cash certification. The priority of that will be to replenish your reserve funds, to keep a reserve for emergencies, but then to use some of that money for other capital or facility repairs. And I think, it'll put you in a really good place to stabilize costs for a lot of the things that you have coming before you. But, the department head's first priority is always, grants, and they've done a very good job, in my opinion, sort of dealing and advocating and applying for these things. But when you put the whole ball of wax together, I think you'll be in a really solid place.
I mean, imagine that Chief Pauly is probably happy to see a transfer from the ambulance fund going to pay for an ambulance as well.
Yeah, on that note, I mean, that's one of the things that we've talked about this winter, is that get back to a practice of reserving ambulance revenues for fire and ambulance related expenses. And the nice thing about that is the chief will do a good job of managing it. But you won't have to go to the tax levy to fund those projects. And but still, I would only say, Ryan Curley mentioned this the other evening, is or Mike DeVasto, I can't remember. Even though we're reserving money in the ambulance funds for future projects, they still have to go to town meeting for appropriation. So your legislative body still will have control of those funds.
Anyone else have questions for Charlie on the capital budget article, Article 5, with all its complexities and parts?
Yeoman's work, Charlie, thank you.
The only thing I'd like to kind of point out is in the past, our warrants used to have FinCom's recommendation, department head's recommendation, and select board's recommendation. I think for format for next town meeting, that I prefer that format.
I think that might be a statement for Rich as much as anything.
Right, but it also gives the opportunity, if there's a difference between what we recommend and what the select board recommends, it's in the warrant. So when people get it at home and they read it, they can see the difference. Right now, I think we all pretty much agree on or have voted for these budgets.
Yeah, that's a good point. I would entertain a motion on, well, to approve Article 5. And we'll see where it goes.
So moved.
Second?
Second,
Okay. Jeff,
aye.
say aye. Linda,
Aye.
Kathy,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Aye.
Bob.
Aye.
And again, were you here long enough to hear enough of the discussion, or do you have an opinion on what?
I say aye.
Okay, and I think we're unanimous on that, and if I'm not mistaken.
Brett, I think there's something wrong with your speaker, your microphone.
Is there?
You're fading
Not
out.
coming through
Very faint.
clearly.
COVID.
I don't, I'm
Sure,
not sure.
blame it on COVID. Poor
Yeah.
COVID.
Let me see if there's actually an adjustment on sound here. See if it makes a difference. That's speakers. Let's see input. Oh, hello. My input volume was like,
There you go.
the input volume had defaulted to 0 for some reason. And you're just telling me now. Oh, no.
No, We thought it it was changed COVID. at that point, just as you were taking the roll.
8. Is that right? 8-0? 8-0, I believe. One, two, 4, 5.
I think it's 9, Fred, if everybody voted.
Correct. It is 9. I had 8 on. All right, on we go. So I have a list of the articles that we did not vote on last time. Let me just get that up. Just give me 1 second, please. The next one was the Water Enterprise Fund. So Jim Hood is out of the country. And Bob had a chance to talk to him. I also received a message from Jim shortly before he left that there were some changes from what's printed in the warrant in terms of actual revenues, so that the debt service number is different. So if you look at Article 7 in the warrant, debt service is listed as $209,521. I got a spreadsheet, which I believe I sent around, but I know I sent it to Bob, that identifies connection fees and deferred payments in the amount of $84,365, reducing the overall general fund contribution required for debt service to $123,096. And with that, I would be happy to turn over the floor to Bob and or Charlie to kind of explain what's going on and let us know exactly what we're voting on here.
Well, this is Charlie. I haven't really, I understand the water commissioner's perspective on that, but you know, the way I understand it at the moment, the motion will be as printed in the motion booklet, which is a reflection of this warrant article. Connection fee revenues, as I understand it, will be reserved for future water department capital costs, which is not a bad thing. So I don't think we can use those revenues to offset the operational budget here. I know the water commissioners have been talking about that, but maybe I was out a little bit, I don't know. But I think right now, you know, all of the debt was funded by Proposition 2.5 debt exclusions approved by the voters. So I think we have to go with that perspective. Now, if in the future they actually collect significant revenues for connection fees, we can look at using some of those funds to offset some future capital costs. But I believe that's the position that I would be presenting to town meeting on Saturday.
Okay. That being said, the other number that jumps out is the debt service from the FY 21-22 budgets of roughly 108, 109,000 to 209. Do either of you have some insight into why it jumped that much? It's always been an issue that this service operates at a deficit going back at least the 7 years that I've been on the finance committee, but that's a hell of a jump.
It's always operated with a deficit. There's never been a year where they've broken even.
That's right.
They're getting there. They're getting there, thanks to Charlie, but they've never broken even.
So does this jump represent capital increases?
That's the Coles Neck water main project.
So that's sort of an amortized debt service then. That is like part of what it's going to cost to do that whole project.
Yes.
Spread out over X number of years.
Yeah, and I just to give, I said it before. I mean, I worked with the water commissioners all winter long. They're almost at the finish line, and we've been working with a water rate consultant. So I think, going forward, we're in a pretty good place because the idea from that whole process was that the water rate would pay for the operating costs and that the general fund would pay for the debt costs. And then the nice thing with the new rate structure that we've adopted is the connection fees would start to accrue into a future capital cost for the water department. So, going forward, we most likely will be able to use some of those revenues to offset some of their future capital costs. So I think they're in a really good place, and I really appreciate the efforts of the water commissioners over this past winter. I know they're just about to advertise a public hearing to finalize these rates, so I think we're at the finish line.
So I have a question, Fred.
Yeah, thank you.
Or through you. I know it's kind of after the fact. How come they only just recently hired a consultant? I mean, I got a copy of that report. It looks really good. Why the delay? I mean, they could have done this 5 years ago and they would have been better off than they are now.
Yeah, I honestly, I can't answer that question. I mean, when I got here, I realized it was an immediate need. And I approached the water commissioners, and we, frankly, the consultant we used was someone I used in Brewster for a long time. I don't know about the past.
Well, thank you very much, because you're right. At this budget here right now, if they wanted to, and I know people are going to roll their eyes, but I bring this up every year. they took this handout that they're looking for and divided by the users, it'd be billing out $180 per user. And there would be nothing from town meeting. So they're getting closer to the goal. They are now using the base service fee feature, which I don't think they've been using in the past.
Yeah.
So thank you, Charlie, for bringing in that consultant.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I would just say this, and the exercise of flogging the past is so inviting because, it's already done. But the first meeting I ever attended as a finance committee member as an alternate was a presentation by the Water Enterprise Group, including Whitewater. And it was a small deficit at the time, relatively speaking. And the question of a betterment fee, essentially what you were talking about, Stephen, which is why not have everybody who's connected or gets betterment?
No, I wasn't talking about a betterment fee. Within the regulations, they have a base service fee feature, which basically enables them to recover a budget shortfall by taking the difference and dividing by the number of users.
Okay.
The betterment thing, I don't think we can go through that because I think the time when we were looking to expand somewhat, I think betterments, don't you have to start right away? I mean, you can't have betterments on one piece of it and betterments on another.
The only point I was going to make was that there was zero, what's the right word? Willingness, I guess, is the simplest one to even entertain raising rates or trying to recover the money either through people who are already connected or people who are getting a betterment. So that has compounded over the years to become a higher and higher deficit because
yes,
it wasn't a will to go back and look at it being a true enterprise fund and being self-funding until, to your point, until the current interim administration said, this doesn't look right. Thank you for that.
And thank you for pointing out the fact that Brewster at one point wasn't breaking even and now they are. I mean,
hopefully there will be a model, hopefully. And Rich, I'm sure you and Nick and Cameron and everybody will go to school on ways to make sure that anything that gets proposed or built out in the future will have a proper funding model going forward so that we don't end up with like massive deficits out to infinity.
And the only thing I'll close on is the nice thing is Rich Waldo has a lot more experience running a water and enterprise fund than I do. So I think you're in good hands. So
we had two large enterprise funds, both water and wastewater. Both of them, we went through extensive rate studies through them, set up rate structures, not only to manage future capital based on a projected capital plan, but also increasing user costs associated with operating the system. So that is a comfort zone for me for sure.
One quick comment directed to Rich, and that just curious if we could explore whether or not we might be able to generate some revenue putting some 5G cellular towers on the water tower.
We have in the.
Well, I know that was considered early, way back, but that might be another, just small, but a little more revenue coming in.
I think over a short course of maybe 5 or 8 years, we were able to generate close to $250,000 in revenue for the enterprise fund from leasing out space on our water tanks in Provincetown. I do believe that we would probably have to go to town meeting, get some sort of bylaw or a charter amendment, get that approved first to allow the town to move forward with co-location and being able to put things on the water tank, but certainly something to look at for sure.
Thank you. So before we bring this up to a vote, I just want to say to some degree, if I'm hearing you correctly, this is in some ways a faith-based vote. If we just saw these numbers without context, we go, oh my God. But because there is a process in play to, quote, fix this issue, I'm guessing, Charlie, that you would recommend that we vote to approve this article.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I certainly recognize yes, Bob.
Can I ask, is there a public hearing regarding the hookup fee going from 8,500 to like 500? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, I know they were, one of the water commissioners was in the office today working with Rebecca Eldridge to set up the public hearing. I don't know what the final recommendation is going to be on that aspect of it. But they're getting ready to advertise the hearing, so.
Right.
Okay, I see Jude has her hand up. If this is a question that is pertinent and we're about to vote, but I'm happy to recognize you, Jude, if it'll be quick.
Yeah, I was just gonna say to the point about the public hearing, there was some debate about whether they were gonna do that. So I encourage you to listen to their last meeting, which was just the other night.
Okey doke. I'm not sure who we're directing that to, but I guess everyone.
Whoever just asked about the public hearing from
Yeah.
them, if
Okay.
they were doing one.
Thank you for that. I would be happy to entertain a motion to vote on Article 7.
Motion to approve?
Second,
Okay, I vote aye. The sequence has changed on my screen. Linda,
Aye.
Kathy,
Aye.
Ira,
Aye.
Stephen,
No,
Mo,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Jeff,
aye.
Jen.
Aye.
Okay, 8-1 to approve. Hang on one second while I fix my little notes here. The next 5 articles 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 are all collective bargaining articles, police contract, Teamsters, communications, Wellfleet firefighters, non-union and other personnel. We have yet to vote on those because they were not concluded. Are all 5 concluded at this point, or are some not yet?
We can make a presentation on article number 8 and 10. We've reached an agreement on both of those bargaining units.
Okay. Would it be appropriate for Chief Hurley to speak to Article 8, or do you want to do that, Charlie?
No, I hate it. It does. Chief Hurley would do actually a better job than me. So.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Fred, and thanks, Charlie. Yeah, we were able to, over probably about a 2-month period, starting back in March, began working with both the police union and the communications unit. The police union, this will be their second 1-year extension due to circumstances last year and some confusion and chaos. We were able to do a 1-year extension. And then this year, just due to limited timing and really prioritizing events in town, the union and along with the communications union both understood that if any type of settlement was going to be made, it would just be a 1-year extension. As many of you may know, if you've been in collective bargaining, to really look at the whole agreement and come up with a 3-year deal is very extensive. And Charlie would have had, I believe, 4 or 5 bargaining groups to work with, and that would have been weeks on end, if not months of work on that. So, we just determined that another 1-year extension was appropriate just to get us into the fall when the unions can work with myself and Rich Waldo, and we can start focusing on the 3-year agreement. So we were successful with both bargaining groups, and I think Charlie can say they were both very understanding of the situation, were very accommodating. It was very pleasant, which sometimes is not always the case. And, we'll focus on a 3-year agreement for both groups come next fall and winter.
So when you say both groups, are we talking about the communications union as well, right?
Yeah, yep. The police had a 1-year extension. Again, this is their second one, and the communications was expiring the end of this month. And so they also agreed to a 1-year extension. which will both will expire June 30th of 2023.
I guess the other obvious question is, does that extension fall in line with a reasonable expectation of increase relative to the fact that it's going to happen again next year? Typically 3 years, you get a 3-year window into what the costs are going to be.
Yeah, Charlie, if you don't mind, because this was kind of my first rodeo, and unfortunately, they were all 1-year extensions just to get somewhere since I became chief.
So, yeah, if I could, maybe I'll just talk about Article number 8 first, Fred. That's the Wellfleet Police Officers Association. And we obviously, there's fiscal issues that we're dealing with, but we wanted to be careful not to, deal with the town's fiscal issues on the back of our labor unions. Let's face it, local government is heavily, focused on employees that provide services. So what we've come up with is a 1-year agreement that would be a 3.5% pay increase for the members. That is consistent with the contract for the Wellfleet Employee Association. They have 1 more year that would provide 3.5%. So we wanted to be consistent and fair with our employees. And the only other thing, we dealt with a few other matters, is we did increase the educational incentive under the existing contract and our goal was to really make Wellfleet a little more competitive with some of the other capes. Our wage scales and our educational incentive scales were at the bottom number 2 and number 3 of the comparative communities from Harwich up to Provincetown. So we're very low on our wages. We're very low on an educational incentive. So we've addressed those in these contracts. And then we also provided a little bit more money to our employees for longevity benefits. But that's it. And also they realize that that the town is seeking an override from the voters for the operational budget. And if the operating budget override fails, we can go back to the unions to renegotiate some of the provisions of this agreement. So, they really were very understanding and really kept their request to a reasonable level, we believe. And but we've dealt with our competitiveness because the reality is all of the towns are poaching. If we have a certified police officer and someone else can hire that person, the training costs for that individual is significant. So we really wanted to try to make sure that we were more competitive so that we could retain the current workforce and retain future employees. So anyway, this article would be in the amount of $39,000.
A deal. I move that we recommend Article number 8.
Second,
Let's do 8 and 10 together because they are related.
Okay, I move that we recommend Article number 8 and Article number 10.
Second,
Okay, I vote aye. Linda,
Aye.
Kathy,
aye.
Ira, Stephen,
Aye.
Mo,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
Jen.
Aye.
Can I just say, Fred, that is a deal with wages
Yeah.
and costs for everybody across the board, from the bus boys to the rocket scientists. Labor market is tough, so I think that thank you for negotiating that.
And,
Well,
and
To
Fred,
that,
oh, I'm sorry, I'll wait.
I was just gonna say related, but when I called my doctor yesterday and was trying to get a response on, hey, I've got COVID, what do I do? It took half a day to get a response and I finally got somebody and they said half the staff is left in their medical practice. This is a significant medical practice. They've left the Cape because they can't live here and they can't afford to live here.
Yeah.
And so they've got people answering phones who are nurses, for example, and it's everywhere. It's something that we have to deal with.
Fred, if I could, I just want to recognize both the Wellfleet Police Officers Association and the Wellfleet Communication Workers Union. They were, very professional and very cooperative and helpful. But most importantly, I want to thank Chief Hurley because he really did all the work. And I just I was like a figurehead. But anyway, they all deserve a lot of credit. And the only other thing, if I could, is I believe there's a strong possibility that we will have a settlement proposal for Article number 9 and 11, but it's going to be right on time for town meeting.
Okay, so there's nothing for us to do but to defer our vote. And Article 12?
12 will be indefinitely postponed because anything relative to that, we've already dealt with in employees' current budgets or their contracts. So we don't need any additional funding under that article.
Is that why the select board voted 5-0?
Well, at that time, they voted 5-0 just to support the article, but in the end, we don't need any money.
Okay. Understood. All right, so then there's nothing for us to do on Articles 9, 11.
Fred, check your volume again, please.
Really? What's the story here? Oh, there it is. Hello. Better?
Yes.
I don't know what's going on. I think maybe I'm hitting a button on the top of my laptop that is.
Well, don't do that.
You should get rid of
Electrical genius. then.
Another sign of COVID.
I'm sick. Leave me alone.
Hallucinating, are we?
Yeah, probably. Hang on one second. Let me just make this note here. Not that one, this one. Yes, and yes. Oh, the Keller's Corner revetment engineering, we don't have to vote on tonight because it's being, we know about that. So Article 25 will not be offered at town meeting, correct?
That's correct.
What about
Okay.
Article 19? We skipped that one?
That was going to be via free cash, so that'll be delayed till the fall.
Yeah, good call there, Jeff. I'm sorry. I have withdrawn on my chart and I forgot to mention it to you. I spoke to John Reel too earlier in the week, who's from the NRAB, and it's going to be deferred to the fall.
Okay, so could I comment on that? Because I did try to contact SPAT. I emailed their board of directors, asking them to make a contribution for this because it helps their event. I also called and left 2 phone messages and nobody's called me back. So this would be a situation where SPAT, I have to basically say, I think they should give us the money because they make a lot of money. But it's directly related to the health of the harbor, the health of the oyster, which their whole event is around. So this is going to come back in fall time, as you're saying? Fred?
Yeah, as I understand from John Reel, he can wait till September special town meeting for the funding because they can get going in October or November with the project.
Okay.
But I think his expectation is that it'll get funded, and the question then is how, right? So.
Right.
I think that's a great idea, Stephen. I know Stephen was working on that, and I think it's a great idea to have the charity that makes a lot of money, that this is specific, right up their alley for contributions. I think that's a great idea to have reached out with them. I'm disappointed that you didn't hear back, Stephen.
Right, and I don't have a Facebook page, so I can't do any public shaming at this point.
Yeah.
Well, I got to say, though, that this sounds like a perfect use of a mini finance committee task force or work group to reach out to SPAT over the summer and try to get
Well,
them.
what comes to my mind is when selectmen are negotiating with them, instead of doing a flat fee, they should just say, we want 10% of the take.
Well, that's another issue, sure.
Right,
Revenue streams, it's all about new revenue
exactly.
streams.
That's what
So
we
I'll keep
need.
you posted,
Thanks, thank you.
not via Facebook. though.
So the last articles that we have unattended are Articles 44, 45, 46, and 47, which have to do with affordable housing stabilization funds and the diversion of short-term rental community impact fees. I guess the good news here, I spoke to Ryan Curley about these. If you'll recall, Charlie had said we might want to talk to Ryan because they're not really his articles. They're they are brainstorm kind of articles. Community impact fees are cost of the town nothing. They come from the state, as I understand it. They are monies that are dispersed to us. And the idea here is that the reason they're divided up as 35 and 65% is that 35% has to be earmarked for infrastructure and or affordable housing. And so by default, that became the source for moving 35% into one of the two articles. And then the 65% was the remaining amount. I gather that the entire amount will end up being around $100,000, give or take, might be a little bit more. The good news for all of that is that voting to abstain or voting to approve will have very little impact on the actual outcome, except in terms of our thinking that it sounds like a good idea or not a good idea, because it all has to go to town meeting anyway. Special town meeting in the fall would be likely. The town would have to approve the ultimate allocation of the monies. So it's more like this is an idea. This is a suggestion. At least that's my understanding of it. And I don't think we need, I'm not even sure I'm in any, I'm not qualified to answer any deep dive questions here. I don't know if Charlie, if you feel any stronger about that, but
I will only say that, you know, Ryan Curley has done all of the work on this project. So I haven't had to invest any energy to understand it, with the exception that I just felt that if we were putting money away for housing for people, that it had merit for me. So that's about the extent of my knowledge of it. I didn't need to spend any time on it because it sounded good to me. So
I recall them once looking like Ryan Curley was gonna have a selectman's policy. Remember that one where he said 85% was going to afford that's gone by the wayside, right?
this is not that. I won't say it's gone by the wayside, but this is
Right.
not that.
Right.
That proposal was driven from an entirely different source. It would have required approval of moving monies that the town actually does raise and
Right.
appropriate.
Town meeting would have to vote on that as well.
Yeah,
They
but
can't
that's,
just create a policy, is what I'm saying.
yeah, this is not that. This is more of a suggestion that this money will be given to us by the state. It's not a massive amount of money. It's more, I don't want to say it's a feel-good kind of thing, because we do need affordable housing. We need to fund it in a variety of ways. So it's more than that, but it's not going to solve the problem either, because the monies are not so great that they're going to solve huge problems either. It's in a way a token to say we care.
Well, it's a funding source, so the money could be used for design or something like that.
For example, yes.
I mean, it's better than nothing.
But,
Yeah.
but I guess what I'm saying is if we vote yes, we support these articles, it is not binding to the town at this point in time. It is just, we support it. It's, I guess it's that we support it in principle.
Therefore, I move it.
Oh, I'm sorry, Stephen.
Go ahead. No, never mind.
So, no, that, I didn't mean to talk over you, Stephen. So these 4 articles are money, is the way Fred explained it, is money that's coming in from the state, and it's just we're just having these articles to appropriate them into some type of funding mechanism to be used for a purpose.
Yes, but there will be another vote on it. It's like, just because we say yes now, that doesn't actually mandate that the money be moved in that
So-
percentage in that way.
Yeah, so what my point was kind of going to be, my larger point should we even take these up now, or should we kick it down the road to when we have a better idea of what the Lawrence Road project looks like as a whole? I mean, we can just offer no opinion on it, right? I mean,
We
it's
could.
like you said, and because my question would be, I have questions on this, and my questions would be, does this fit to a piece of the puzzle with a larger funding piece that needs to tell a bigger story?
Well, Kathy, I think we do have to start with creating an affordable housing stabilization fund, because I don't believe we have one right now. So isn't that what Article 44 is doing, is at least setting up the stabilization so we can receive the monies?
Okay.
So that does have to happen. I
So
mean,
that
that's
makes me-
the
okay,
second
so
or
that-
third
that-
step in the whole process.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
it's
that-
an,
that
it's an
makes me feel
interesting,
better.
it's an interesting 4 articles in that, to your point, Stephen, it does set up a stabilization fund. It doesn't fund it. It's Articles 46 and 47 basically say that when we get these monies in, they will be put into those stabilization funds. You can't do one without the other. I think we noted that in our last meeting. They are interdependent.
So
But if you're comfortable saying, yes, we can vote on Articles 44 and 45, that we agree with setting up a stabilization fund, and we want to punt down the road on Articles 46 and 47, I think that's not an inappropriate way to go too.
So, so the kind of the big picture thing is, yeah, if we set up these stabilization funds and assign a rate, and then we have other grants or things that come in that don't necessarily meet the stabilization outlines, what do we have to do to undo it? But I mean, that's a kick the can down the road. Are grants and funding for larger projects going to have their own set of earmarks on them imposed by agencies other than the town of Wellfleet that would interfere with these? Or am I getting too?
We need to
in the
come up
guessing
with
not-
several sources, and grants are another source to achieve this goal.
weeds? Okay,
One of them is setting up the stabilization funds. It's just a way of saying, yes, we accept this money. We have these stabilization funds to receive the money. Each year, I think spending from them does require a town meeting vote. You can change, I think you can change the percentage, but it would require a town meeting vote. So this would just be
Okay.
one way to get revenue to support affordable housing, and grants are just another way. So it's,
Yeah,
Well,
and
is it-
actually, in reading the articles again, I'm sorry, I'm a little slow today. Articles 44 and 45 are very specific that the revenue is coming from the community impact fee. So if you vote, it's not just setting up a stabilization fund, it's setting up one specifically designed to receive money from that source and that source alone.
And that's a one-time source, right?
no,
No,
it's annually.
yeah,
Going.
it is a one source. It comes from one place. And but it's not the same thing as saying all rental incomes, a percentage of those will go to affordable housing or any other funding source. I guess I'm going to propose that we vote either to accept or defer here, and I'm willing to do either, but I kind of think based on what I'm sensing here and that we might as well. vote
Okay,
to-
I move that we
Yes.
recommend Article 44 and 45.
I'll second that.
Okay, I'm going to vote yes. Linda,
Yes,
Kathy,
I'll vote yes.
Ira,
Aye.
Stephen,
Yes.
Mo,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
and Jen.
aye.
Okay, so 9-0. And having done that,
Then we got 46.
46 and 47, which are and to see if the town will vote to accept the provisions authorizing the imposition of a community impact fee on the transfer of occupancy of a short-term rental.
So does this mean that there are two, like 46 and 47, they're both 3%? Does that mean that a total of 6% can be
No,
taken? No,
no,
okay,
it's the same 3%. It's just being allocated to two places.
differently, okay.
I have to say personally, I am confused by both of those articles. I still don't really understand what you're voting for there. If somebody can explain them in greater detail, I'd be happy to listen, but
I think it's just saying that we want to take the 3% on the occupancy, the short-term rental.
Charlie, is that your understanding as well, or do you not want to weigh in?
The reason I originally hesitated to talk about it because I only know so little about this, but this is going to be, as I understand it, a charge to professionally managed and owner occupied units of 3%. So when they rent out their houses or apartments, there'll be a fee added on, collected by the Department of Revenue, and those monies will flow into the two stabilization funds that you just adopted.
Now, does this make any allowances for people who live in their home and rent out a room or some part of their property, but are doing it basically just to have enough money to live? Is there a need?
Now you've gone way beyond my capacity to explain it, so.
Yeah.
Fred, I think Airbnb, you're talking about Airbnb, I think they also collect on single room rentals.
Yeah,
46 in the summary on 46, it says that these fees are for short-term rentals of, quote, professionally managed short-term. And then they go on to define professionally managed as 2 or more units run by the same operator, not located within a 2 to 3 family dwelling. So I don't think it's what you were
It
asking.
includes the operator's primary residence. So
Well, 47 assumes that you're not a professional manager, that you are renting out some part of your property. 46 appears to be that you've hired a professionally managed operator of some kind.
That's the Del Mars and the Airbnb.
So they're different. They're similar but different. Again, I'm my personal. If we were to vote on this now, I would abstain personally, and I'm happy to hear what anyone else has to say. I just don't understand it well enough to know how to vote on it.
I think that if the Affordable Housing Trust is deferring, I think we should do the same. If it wasn't clear to them, or for whatever reason they deferred, I'd like to hear what they have to say at town meeting.
Okay, Jude, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The way it was explained, the way it was explained, and I just texted or emailed Ryan to see if he could quickly come in to explain, but was that in the past, we were under the impression that some of these fees were already going into a trust or some vehicle for affordable housing. And it was revealed that with these budget issues and problems with the finances, that those funds were actually used for something else, so that these articles would ensure that that money was safe in these funds to be used specifically. I think Article 47 is slightly different because those funds aren't already being collected, but I think all the others already are. That's just my, I could be wrong, but that's kind of my.
There we are. We could be wrong, right? It's
Yeah.
like,
but I
none of
mean,
us
it was
really
because but it was to ensure that these funds really couldn't be used for some other reason. That was the purpose behind them.
an admirable goal. If Charlie, you have your hands up?
Fred, Fred, I do want this, I don't know a lot about all of this. I do know that what Ms. Hearn just suggested isn't accurate. So we do collect money, and I understand, I'm not blaming her because it's confusing, but right now we do collect a lot of money through the room occupancy tax. And there was a proposal and a discussion to reserve a large percentage of that revenue for affordable housing. And in the end, we had to use those revenues to offset the operating budget costs. So they're two separate issues. This doesn't deal with that issue at all.
But is that the same thing as the monies that come in through the community impact fee?
No, they're different.
Because
That's
these
marijuana money.
these are specific to the community impact fee, right?
Yeah, this is a different fee than the fee that we were just talking about for the room occupancy tax.
Isn't
Yeah.
this the fee that comes off of the marijuana cannabis shops?
No,
No?
Where's the pot money?
Yeah, where's the pot money?
the same thing that the pot money, frankly, was the same deal. We're using that to offset costs for the operational budget.
That's good.
I think, you know, with all of the discussion, Fred, what I would hate to do is inappropriately appropriate money that we don't really understand what the revenue stream is and what the impact is going to be. So I agree, I would probably defer on these until we got a better explanation, and I'm sure there will be one at town meeting if these come up for a vote. Does that sound reasonable?
It does
This
to me.
isn't really appropriating money. It's defining. I mean, yeah, I'll move that you reserve recommendation at town meeting.
Yeah, I mean, well, and actually, we've already reserved the town meeting, so we
Oh,
don't
you don't
have
have to do anything.
we don't have to do a thing on 46 and 47. We wouldn't be changing our current position. So
Do we have
It
to
is
vote
very
on that?
confusing.
it is. Well, you know, in the next few days, someone, hopefully, maybe me, will try to get a clearer answer of exactly what those two articles mean. And there you go. That's it for the articles in the warrant.
Woo-hoo.
And by the way, I wanted to say thank you to Chief Hurley as well, and his lovely children.
Sorry about that. She was just saying goodnight.
Do
If
not,
I could-
do not be sorry about having lovely children. who come to sit with me.
The only one that still loves me, the other two are teenagers. so.
Well said.
Yeah. Fred, if I could, and I do apologize. I believe it was a few meetings ago, you may have discussed and voted on the warrant article for the 2 new additional police officers. Just I didn't, while I was here tonight, if there was any questions, if anyone's seen the past few forums, and of course I'll have a few words on Saturday. The only thing I'd like to add is the board did authorize me to apply for a federal COPS grant for the 2 positions that, if successful, and if we also have the positions authorized, could pay up to $250,000 towards the 2 positions over 3 years. So it's a fairly substantial grant. It's kind of been around since the mid-1990s. It's kind of alive again, and the funding stream is there. So I just wanted to throw that out there tonight and just answer any questions if there are any.
Curly, I have a question. Sorry, I didn't raise my hand. Do you mind, Fred?
No, of course not. You're the chair.
Just
You're not
kind
the
of,
chair.
you know, overview on the whole budget. We know that you're in this situation because of the Police Reform Act that decimated the part-time and seasonal police officers. Is there any talk with our representatives that, I mean, we're not the only coastal community doing it. Every seasonal community all over the place is dealing with this. Is there a way to get to our local representatives to discuss the impact of that legislation and see if there can be tweaks made to it? Just a thought, because this is a global issue.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It's a Cape issue. It's a Central Mass issue, a Western Mass issue where police departments are only 1 or 2 members, if that, with 20 reserve auxiliary police officers. I do know that Senator Sayre and Representative Peake were looking at some options through legislation to maybe help assist or change it. And to be honest, I mean, once June 30th comes and goes, and I have not heard anything to date, the first wave, A through H, will be decertified statewide. So, I mean, really at this point, the Mass Chiefs of Police are not getting any indications that that this is going to change at all. And really, you would have to go back to the law itself, which states one standard of training. And my understanding is they don't want to go back and revisit that legislation at all, as a group at the State House. So the long and short answer to that is I don't see any relief coming, unfortunately. And to be honest, it's devastating. I was a summer cop in the mid 1990s. I was a bike cop downtown, and it was a phenomenal opportunity for myself. And now as a manager, as a lieutenant, and now as chief, it was a great way for a summer or two to really look at people, to see them interacting with the community, see how they interacted with your full-time staff. So I got to be honest, I mean, it's been a 40-year model in Wellfleet that has been phenomenal, and it's devastating that we're losing it. The last few hires I just made this past fiscal year are people I met in an interview. I never worked with them. They didn't work a bike shift. They didn't dispatch. They didn't do anything. So we're really entering a new world. But on top of that, with this, losing 8 to 10 people from a department, especially when population swells, as we're going to see in these seasons, and now our shoulder seasons. I mean, I feel like now we're able to catch our breath only in January, February, maybe a little bit of March, and then we're off to the races again through the holidays. So the staff I have now is getting tired. I only have 2 reserve officers left, and by next summer I'll have 1, and after that we'll have none. So we're kind of at a critical point. I probably should have asked for these last year, but the situation we were in, I wanted to hold off a year. And I know this is not the most opportune time, but it's really critical to at least have some staffing as we move forward for the community.
I will say one of the things I remember from when you presented this to us a couple of meetings back was I think the question was raised that if you had the authorization and you were able to hire 2 new policemen, when would we actually see them on the beat? And you said it was, I want to say fall of 2023 or something, summer. There was no instant fix here.
No, I mean, every time we have vacancies and openings, we're looking at 12 to 18 months from recruitment to training to field training. And this time around, it took me 7 months to fill one of the positions because we're only getting 1 or 2 applicants an opening. I remember the days of 40 or 50. So it's the profession is changing. Where statewide, it's critical to even get applicants, never mind this reserve program. And to be bluntly honest, if it wasn't for the police reform change, this request wouldn't be in front of anybody. The model worked, everything was going well. I guess we can, as those chiefs that it affects, it's called unintended consequences to legislation, unfortunately.
It'll bite you every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys for that. We have 2 other little bits of business here. One is, and you'll note it in the agenda, selection of the new officers of the committee. I certainly made no secret of the fact that I think 3 years is long enough to be chair of anything, just on principle. So thank you for that. We do have a candidate for chair and for vice chair. So go figure. But to be fair, I mean, look, Charlie looks like he wants to jump in. So I just want to make sure that before we anoint the candidates, that if anybody else really wants either of the positions, currently Kathy Granlund has agreed mysteriously to be chair, and Jen Rhodes to be vice chair. And I guess I would urge you to unanimously anoint both.
Fred, that's a
So
fix.
moved.
That's a fix.
So moved.
I know what it is.
Anybody
Trust me,
else
I
wanna
know
jump
exactly
in?
what it is, but I think I know the real politic of this group too. If there's anybody who wants to challenge you, I would fall out of, I'd fall out of my
No.
chair. So
There's a motion on the table.
There
so
certainly
moved.
And I'll
is.
second.
all right, so
Thank you,
all,
Mo.
all in favor of Kathy being the new chair of the Finance Committee, and it was going to be to take office after town meeting, but given my current situation, in effect, Kathy will be taking office at town meeting. To Kathy to be chair and Jen Rhodes to be vice chair, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Go
nays?
abstain, Fred.
You're going to abstain?
Yeah, because I won't be here.
No, you're still here, though.
You're still here. You can vote.
You can vote.
Okay,
You
okay.
haven't
Unless
left
you want to
yet.
be chair, is that what this is for? No, just.
Yeah, are you angry? Is this a power move, Linda? Oh, God, that was so nefarious of you. I'm leaving, but I want to be chair. Well done.
I think my husband just yelled no in the other room.
I understand that one.
You
So
want an
doesn't get the vote.
espresso shot in that?
I want to say congratulations to me primarily that someone agreed to take over. But Kathy is going to be great, and Jen will be great. And I'll say in general, it's been a real pleasure and privilege to be the chair, not the leader of this committee. It's a great committee, and will continue to be. And I'm not going anywhere anyway. The other bit.
Thank you, Fred.
Yes, Bob.
Did you write that statement for the Finance Committee?
Yeah, I sent it around today. Did
It's in the
I read
warrant.
it, and my comment is brilliant. Very well done, articulate, politically correct, and it.
I always try to.
covers-
You
No,
know, I
no,
always try to
it
be
did a-
politically
That's a
correct.
marvelous job of couching the position and what we've been through. And I thought it was excellent.
Well, in fairness, there was direct and indirect contributions from a number of members. The most direct being Kathy, who may have come down with COVID because she met with me the other day, and hopefully not. The indirect ones, the word reset was specifically pulled from a comment Ira made a meeting or two back, that the town is going through a reset, and we thought that was an important point to make. There have been a number of members who have talked about the past in a variety of ways, and we tried to, there were several versions, and we went through, how do we want to talk about the past? And we decided that for the most part, we don't want to dwell on it, but it's important to note that there was a past and that it's gotten us to here. So thank you for that, but I just want to absolutely share responsibility for that statement, because it also gives me cover.
You misspelled Nick's name in that, so just correct that.
I'm sorry, I misspelled what?
You misspelled Nick's name. It's Robertson, not Robertson.
Oh, yeah, I see it's got a little red line under it too. My bad. Let's see if it, oh, yeah, there you go. Sorry, it was quickly done.
Can I, just to ask if it's okay, Fred, the fact that you're going back over the course of nearly 10 years, you really want to go back that far?
No, what I want to say is, in the shortest possible way, someone said to me, and I won't say who, early on in this financial crisis period, you know, Fred, Wellfleet used to be more flush, was what I was told. The implication being that there used to be more than enough money to handle things in an informal way. Mike DeVasto made a statement at the last select board meeting that I attended on May 31st anyway, that new building peaked about 5-6 years ago in Wellfleet and has been decreasing since then. All we wanted to say was that if you want to go back and look for source material before we hit COVID, before we hit the transition of the financial systems, before we went through all of the people who left 3-4 years ago who represented institutional memory and managed things the way they used to be managed, and got that revolving door of town administrators and accountants and treasurers, before all of that, the town was a fundamentally different place to manage. The finances of this town were easier to manage 7-8 years ago than they are now. And how do you say that in a sentence? You know, so
I'm
that
not sure, Fred, but I'm sorry to interrupt, but going back 10 years, and I don't think that anybody would read this and assume that nobody's casting blame. There's a lot of blame going around town. And when you blame 10 years ago, I think it might bring up other issues. And I'm not sure that that's a great idea.
Yeah, let me just say to that though, Mo, nobody is being blamed in that sentence. What it says is that there was a fundamental shift over the course of nearly 10 years in the balance between revenues and expenses that created challenges for town management. It doesn't blame anybody. All it's saying is that the fundamentals of town management have changed in 10 years.
You're using the word disruption and
Yeah.
10 years.
Yeah, and that's a true statement. The town is, the cost of running the town and the way you run the town is different now than it used to be. And that, and it's been pegged to Prop 2.5, and it's pegged to certain assumptions about how budgets rise year over year that have been thrown into confusion over the last few years. And that's kind of the point.
Yeah, I don't think that that has blame in it at all. In fact, that's what they talked about at the finance committee meeting, the joint meeting the other night. Mike was talking about that, and Charlie was talking about that, and I mean, that was kind of the sort of the theme, that this just didn't, it occurred to us 2 years ago, but it had been a drip. You know, it's been the faucet dripping for quite a while, where revenues were not keeping up with expenses due to I think that's a fair statement. I don't think that's blameful, but then again, this is a committee statement, so.
What are you all reading?
Oh, I sent the
don't think I
document
got-
around earlier, Stephen. It's
You
a
did?
one-page document on a statement that we want to make at town meeting. We were asked to make a statement, finance committee,
Email.
and it's a short one-page.
All right, well, I guess I didn't get it, because I'm looking through my
It came a
email.
couple hours ago.
Perhaps instead of saying over nearly 10 years, maybe say perhaps over the past 10 to 20 years. And that'll get rid of any,
I don't know if that improves it.
So
though.
I'd like to read, Fred, can you resend it to me? Because I don't have it.
Yeah, and let me make sure that I am clear, which is your correct email. Is it the one that,
It's Wellfleet@comcast.net.
okay, so.
I just want to say, I don't see this statement as blaming anyone. I think and actually in some ways it doesn't even, there are two separate issues. There's one, the financial problems that the town has had, but the other bigger issue, and was addressed because of those financial problems, was kind of the way we did business and the financial changes that have been occurring over 10 years. And that's not anyone's fault. That's just the nature of what has happened, that revenues have changed. And it's important that now we kind of reassess and look at things a little bit differently, separate from, the financial problems that were ongoing as well. So I kind of see it as two different issues, and I don't see it as blaming at all.
Yeah,
I don't either.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you on that. I mean, I've been on the finance committee for a long time too. And yeah, part of the past practices would come up to bite us in the butt, in that every year, everyone's like, oh no, you don't want to do a 2.5. Now we're finding out that it's normal or healthy for a town to do a 2.5 override every once in a while. And then, so it doesn't really blame anybody. It just explains the situation that happened and where we are today.
To me, it's an irony that people have an issue with the notion of breaking through Prop 2.5 periodically, when anybody who has a house or even has a life knows that their expenses don't go up in an orderly way year over year. There are times when you have to put the new hot water heater in, you have to buy a car or whatever, and your expenses move asymmetrically year over year. They don't move up in a straight line, and your revenues certainly don't. You change jobs, you make a little more, you make a little less. You amortize the cost of your life over time and try to manage it in a manageable way, but you don't necessarily expect that, oh, every year I'm only going to spend 2% more than I did the year before. Life doesn't work that way. And I don't know why people think a town would, but there you go. And here we are.
Good analogy.
So anyway, Kathy, with your permission, Kathy will make this statement or something analogous to it on Saturday. It's brief. And I think the primary message here, we've already approved Article 1. So it's not like news that we approve the override. It basically says we support the work that Charlie and Lisa and Mary did. We've been working with them for over a year closely. And as Charlie noted before, we believe they've done a good job and we support Article 1. That's kind of the net of it. And beyond that, we're not taking any significant positions on blaming people or, and we wish you, Rich, and your team well in the future. There is a note in there that we want, you and Nick and Cameron and Rebecca, you go. So, I mean, what else can we possibly say? Be successful.
Thank you, Fred. We appreciate that for sure. And congratulations to you for your tenure as the chair of the FinCom, and congratulations to Kathy. I look forward to working with, FinCom, for what I hope to be several years. I don't want to be another, story of a transitioning town administrator. I want to get my feet into things. I have and keep it going. And I hope Nick will be along for the whole ride. I really do.
All right.
And I'm
Thank
picking
you.
Richard,
Thanks, Fred. Thank you, Linda. Linda, will you be at town meeting you'll be through town meeting, right? So we'll see you on Saturday?
Oh, since it's not pouring, I'll be there.
Rich,
I
I'm
took an
looking
inside
forward to
job.
seeing your goat in the 4th of July parade. I'm just saying.
This is the first I'm hearing of such things, so I'll have to follow up on that one.
Okay.
I don't know that there'd be some like secret underlying message. Goat, greatest of all time. You're walking a goat, I mean, it's like, people might draw conclusions. I would be happy to entertain a motion to adjourn at this point so I can get back to my
So
COVID.
moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Seconded.
If anybody has a problem with that, please say so. Otherwise, thank you. And thank you for the members of the public who attended as well. I see Tim Sayer there and Jude. Thank you for your contributions. And I'll see you after.
And a special
Saturday.
thanks to Fred
Yes.
for doing such a wonderful job chairing.
Thank you, Fred.
And you guys for being a great committee. And let's get out of
Go
here.
Celtics.
Fred.
Meeting
Go
over.
Celtics.
Bye.
Good job, Fred.
Bye,
Thank
guys.
you.
See you on Saturday.
Good night.